Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Franson from The Remarkable Practice. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Remarkable Practice Academy. I am sure that you will find that each of these videos will bring huge value as standalone segments, but together they create a comprehensive training system that will equip and empower you to build your own remarkable practice. So train hard. Your town is counting on you. Remember, you're in the business of saving lives, so when business is good, everybody wins. The meet and greet is the first clinical interaction between the prospective new patient and your team. It'll take place right after the new patient tour of your practice. Now, if a CA is doing the office tour, then this could be the first time that the patient meets the doctor. Otherwise, if you're utilizing a new patient concierge, then this communication would simply flow right after the tour. I suggest that this communication happens in the consultation room so that the interaction can be focused and private. The purpose of the meet and greet is to make an empathetic connection with the prospective new patient. In other words, to make sure that the patient feels like you get them and you understand why they're there, what they want, what they think their problem is, why they showed up in the first place. Now, they should feel like you know what their concerns are, their fears, their wants, their needs, and their goals. They must feel like you get them, and you must get their story. The truth is, the conversion process, which I'll refer to as day 1 and day 2, is 80% about the patient feeling like you got them, that you got their story, and 20% about us feeling like they got us, that they got our story, the chiropractic story. We have to make them feel like we understood them. Now, unfortunately, in my experience, we as chiropractic teams fall down here. We're so focused on teaching them everything that they never wanted to know about chiropractic that we forget to focus on them and their wants and needs. This 80-20 rule can get turned upside down easily, and we end up totally focusing on the right thing, but at the wrong time. And this is a huge mistake. We must make day 1 and day 2 all about them. After they convert, then they're available to us to learn everything about chiropractic. But more on that in future trainings. For now, let's focus on how to create the empathetic connection that's absolutely necessary to drive conversions. Remember, conversion starts with connection. The new patient meet and greet is the first step in the story cycle. Remember, new patients come in through the front door with their story. Our first job is to get their story. Once they feel as though we understand them, then and only then are they ready to hear our story. This is the essence of the meet and greet. This is the key to making the empathetic connection. Once they feel as though we have got their story, then they are available to us to hear our story. When they hear the chiropractic story, have their aha moment, their epiphany, they can engage with us, commit to care, become a patient, learn the truth, start the healing process, and then we get to shape their new story. Now they have a new story to tell, and we get to send them back into the world to share their new story. And now chiropractic, you are part of that new story. So let's get back to step 1, get their story. AARP did a fascinating study where they surveyed 50,000 50-year-olds and asked them about their healthcare. One question asked was, what traits do you look for in a healthcare provider? The top 3 answers may surprise you. Number 1 was empathy. Number 2 was certainty. And number 3 was passion. Man, does that sound like something we could just own as chiropractic teams or what? Let's talk about empathy first. Empathy, or more accurately, an empathetic connection, happens when another person feels like you understand them, that you get them. Most importantly, it implies that you can successfully communicate with another person that you get them. This is the implicit goal of the meet and greet. Specifically, we must ask the right provocative questions that will allow the patient to share the most important driving force that brought them into your clinic in the first place. Do not be a talking head here, lecturing patients. Instead, engage your patients with questions. You have got to get the patient to tell you how their health or health issues are impacting their life. This is called the life effect. This is the real reason that they're in your office in the first place. This is why they'll start care, and this is why they'll stay under care. We will do a deeper dive of this interaction in the 4 agreements module, but for now, know that this is what you're trying to accomplish. They must describe for you how their health is screwing up their life. They must tell you what they cannot do. They must say how it's making them feel. They cannot do the things that they want to do. They don't feel the way that they want to feel, and they cannot live the life that they want to live, period. They must tell you these things themselves, and you must ask the questions that will get them talking. And I'm going to show you exactly how we do this. First, let's go through a stepwise study of each part of the meet and greet. In order to do this well, it's absolutely necessary to review the new patient intake form in detail. You should be able to tell this person's story before you even meet them. This will allow you to ask the right questions at the right time. Of course, we've included our new patient intake form in the resources box below. Make it a personal habit to spend 2 to 5 minutes reviewing a patient's intake form. So much information can be gathered just by reviewing that paperwork. You should be able to tell their story before you even meet them. All right, let's talk about the meet and greet. So we start with your basic hello, your introduction. Very often this is the first time the doctor is meeting the patient. If you're CA or an associate doctor or a new patient concierge is doing the tour, this might be the first time you're meeting this person. Say hello, look them in the eye, look them in the left eye, shake their hand, good firm handshake, confidence. This is that first interaction. Now, when you're meeting this person for the first time, one of the first things you want to get to is the referring source. Recognize the referring source. Notice, hey, I see that Michael referred you into the practice. Michael's great. I know you're a CrossFitter. Do you know Michael from the CrossFit box? Just make some type of social connection. Essentially what you're trying to accomplish here is, you know Michael, you know and like Michael. I know Michael, he knows and likes me, you should know and like me, okay? You should like me and trust me. All right, so recognize that referring source. Hands down, my favorite question to ask when you're meeting a new patient for the first time that's been referred by one of your existing great patients is, I'm curious, exactly what did Michael say to you that made you want to come in and see us today? Man, what a great way to start this interaction. The first thing that's going to happen is they're going to look up and off to the right-hand side to go into their memory. And they're going to start talking about what Michael, or whoever referred them into your practice, told them about you. Now think about this. This question is going to bring them back to the exact moment where they made an emotional decision to call your office and come in and see you. They're going to say things like, well, Michael said you were great and you really helped him with his, XYZ problem. And he said that you were wonderful. He said your team was great. And they're going to start talking about accolades, things that they say to you. You got to listen to this because it's a real core values reveal. They're going to tell you what's important to them. Listen to what they're saying and listen to the words that they're using, okay? They're going to go back emotionally to the moment where they made the decision to come into your practice. Remember, that first phone call and coming across the threshold is the hardest decision that they're ever going to make. So you want to pay attention to, what did they say that was enough to bring them across the threshold, okay? Now, if this is a lead that's coming in from an outside talk or a spinal screening, maybe an ad that you put out or a networking event, you can modify this question, right? So let's say you imagine it was somebody that came from an outside talk or from a spinal screening, right? So I'll ask, so I'm curious, exactly what did you hear or what did I say that made you want to come in and see us today? And then again, listen. You're going to hear them say things like, Doc, do you remember when you started speaking about, people who have trouble getting well? They've tried this, they've tried that, they're tired of taking drugs, they don't want to see one more specialist or have one more procedure done, and they don't want to have surgery. Man, you were telling my story. That was exactly me. Again, emotionally, you're going back to the moment where they decided, hey, I'm going to go and see this doctor. And that's exactly where you want this interaction to start, and this is exactly where you want this relationship to start. So I make sure to thank the referral source, especially if it's an existing patient of ours, and I will say, hey, you know what? I've already thanked Michael for referring to the practice. I saw him and his beautiful family this morning. They're just wonderful. I told him you'd coming in today. He's excited that you were coming in today. I promised him we were going to take good care of you, and I'm going to ask you to do the same the next time you see him. Can I ask you to do that for me? We've been blessed with being almost 100% referral in our practice. So as I see it, it's our job to serve you to that level. So I'm telling him, look, this is how you show me you're happy here. This is how you show us that you think we're doing a great job, is you tell everyone you know. I come right out and tell them that. I want to set that referral culture in place at the very beginning of our relationship. Remember, great relationships start with clear and honest, transparent expectations and agreements. I start right there with a new patient. So number 3, now we're going to get into the chief complaint. Now remember, you reviewed their paperwork, and if you look at our paperwork, you'll see things like, if you have a symptom or a condition that's brought you here to the office here today, please describe it, talk to us about it. And we'll have them give us information about, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad does this get? How would you describe it? And how is this interfering with your life? We're getting all of that information on the front end, and my team and my new patient concierge will help them fill out that paperwork even further before we even get to this point, and I will review that paperwork before they come in. So when I'm looking at that new patient paperwork, I'm looking at who is this person, how did they find us, who referred us, or did he come from some talk or what have you. I want to see, what do they do for a job? What do they do for a living? It's going to give me a sense of sort of the culture of their life. How old are they? Are they married? Do they have children? What sports do they play? What's their chief complaint, if any? What kind of conditions have they had? What's their health history? How are they describing it? On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it? On a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are they to correcting this problem? So I want to see all these things. I want to know who I'm dealing with before I even start having this conversation, all right? So when I sit down, we start talking about chief complaint, I might say to somebody, okay, Dave, so I know that you're struggling with sciatica. Is that correct? I'm sorry to hear that. I know that can be tough, right? So help me understand this a little bit better. Tell me about it. And then I'm just going to shut my mouth and I'm going to let them talk for a good 45 seconds to a minute, what have you. And I'm just going to be looking them in the eye, paying attention, not really taking notes. I'm just listening. And I want to say things like, I understand. I want to nod my head, let the person know that you're registering, okay? Now, they're going to go in one of 3 directions. The first direction is they're going to start just describing the symptomatology. Let them let off some steam, okay? They're just trying to be a good compliant patient because this is how they've been trained in the medical model their whole life. Look, I'm going to tell you everything that I think you need to know about this particular symptom. That's just how they've been trained. So let them blow off some of that steam. So again, they can make, they have an opportunity to sort of bridge that gap, that information gap, so that they feel like you understand why they're there. Okay, so let them describe that. If they start going too deep into the description of their chief complaint, in other words, they start going down like the OPQRST road, what I'll do is I'll nod my head, I'll listen, I'll give them a little, and then I'm going to put my hand up and I'm going to stop them and I'll say, Dave, let me interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt. And then I say this, I say, everything you're telling me is very important. These details are critical. I need to capture all of these in my notes. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions around this so we can get to the root of this and find out what's causing your sciatica, okay? I'm going to be really thorough, so I'm going to ask you to bear with me, okay? I want to make sure that I get all these notes, right? So what you're doing is you're stopping them. It's a pattern interrupt. You're validating the information that they're giving you, and you're also making sure that they know that you're hearing them and that you're going to be doubling back and asking them the details of what brought them in, okay? So it's a very respectful way of interrupting them. And then you want to redirect it, and you want to redirect it towards the life effect. And the life effect is when you want to ask this person directly, how is this affecting your life, okay? So you want to know, you've got the sciatica, and I know that, on its worst day, you've said it's a 9 on a scale of 10. So, I know also in your paperwork you've indicated that you're a CrossFitter or you're a runner, what have you. Well, not with sciatica, you're not. So is it interfering with that? Yes. So it's interfering with workouts? Yeah. Does it interfere with work? Tell me about that. How does that affect your work? How about your sleep? Does it interrupt your sleep patterns? Okay, so that affects your energy. Does it affect your patience? Does it affect your, patience with your spouse or your children or what have you, right? So really dig in there. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get them to tell you how their lack of health or their symptom or condition is impacting their life. That's the life effect. Now listen to me. That's why they're going to start with you, and that's why they'll convert. That's why they'll stay. You've got to get them to talk about this life effect and unpack the life effect. How bad does it get? What does this interfere with? The third group of people are people who are minimizers, and they're not going to share with you. Now, ultimately, this person, most likely, they minimize everything in their life, okay? Or you just haven't overcome a trust threshold with them yet. It's not that they distrust you, it's just that they don't trust you yet, so they're not ready to be vulnerable with them. So, what I'll do here is I'll prod a little bit, I'll push a little bit with them, and, you start asking questions a bit from a different angle. If this got worse, what would it interfere with? If this never got away, if this never went away, how would it affect your life? So ask questions like that with this minimizer and make sure that you get that life effect unpacked for them. Now, once I fully understand and appreciate that, I like to recap it a little bit. I'll talk to them a little bit about what I heard them say about their chief complaint, describe it a bit, how it's affecting their life, okay? And then I'll stop them and I'll say, you know what, Dave, just listening to you, I want you to know that I've had excellent results with cases just like you. I've helped lots of people just like you with sciatica like this, just from what I'm hearing, okay? And I hope that'll be the case for you. Okay, but first things first, we've got to ask you a series of questions and do some tests to make sure that you're in the right place. Okay, so and then I'll progress into my pre-consultation script. Okay, so does that make sense? Okay, so you want to say I've had excellent results with cases just like you, and if you don't have the confidence or the certainty because you don't have that experience yet with cases like that, you can say, we've had excellent results with cases just like you, because you can refer to chiropractic. Okay, so lean against the certainty and the experience and the positive outcomes that doctors like myself and other doctors that you surround yourself with have had with cases like that. Say, we've had excellent results with cases just like this. And then say, so I hope that'll be the case for you. Okay, that's the first step of the push away. So I hope that'll be the case for you, all right? Now, but first things first, we've got to make sure you're in the right place. Okay, so that's called the push away. Okay, so make sure that you do the push away, because this creates what's called the scarcity effect here. Okay, the scarcity effect means that, you know what, it's not an open door policy. We don't just accept every single person. You don't just walk in here and sign up for care, right? We don't accept all patients. And the truth is that that a person whose health is not their priority and they were not ready to commit and follow our recommendations for care, they can't be in our office, right? So I want to make sure that we're being authentic when we say that. Let's first make sure that you're in the right place, okay? So you want to roll right into during this consultation, we're going to ask you a lot of questions. We're going to determine what examinations we'll need to do. I'm going to be thorough, so I'm going to ask you to bear with me, okay? And then your segue into your pre-consultation is, before we do that, it's important that you understand what we do here. So I'm going to speak to you as if you know nothing about chiropractic, okay? And what you've done there is you've just asked for permission. You've asked them for permission to be able to speak to you about chiropractic as if they've never heard about it before, right? Or they know nothing about it. And this is sort of giving you permission to go into your spiel. And they're seeing a professional, and you're going to have an educational spiel, and this is the time when you can break right into your pre-consultation. And I like to start with our purpose statement, all right? So now, if you're using a new patient concierge, what's critically important here is very typically there's a handoff that happens here. Now, imagine this flow. New patient concierge helps the person check in at the front desk, helps them complete their paperwork. They give them a tour of the office. They bring them back into a consultation room. The doctor comes in. The new patient concierge stays in the room. She introduces the doctor to the new patient, or the prospective new patient, and she stands by while the doctor does this first piece, right? Now, instead of the doctor breaking into the pre-consultation, what I like to do is I'll turn and I'll say, now I'm going to have my assistant, Sarah, take over from here. She's going to ask you a lot of questions so that we can get to the root of this problem. Okay, she's going to be thorough, so I'm going to ask you to really bear with her, right? The same type of spiel. Then we can determine exactly what examinations we'll need to do. We're going to be thorough, so hang in there, okay? So I'm going to return shortly to check your spine and continue with any other examinations, okay? Now I'll validate or edify Sarah by saying, you're in really good hands here, okay? And then I exit, and the new patient concierge takes over that consultation. Now that new patient concierge can go through that pre-consultation. She can do the trauma history. She can do the discussion of the chief complaints, so the OPQRST format. Then she can get into goal getting, and then even into the pre-examination, when she does a spinal screening, or he does a spinal screening, the biostructural exam, bilateral weight scale, postural evaluation, etc., maybe a thermography study or other objective tests, and then the doctor is brought back into the end of the examination. What's beautiful about this is it buys about a 20 to 30 minute window there where the doctor can get right back to the adjusting. So in our office, we're able to pull the doctor out for just a 5-minute meet and greet, hands off back to the new patient concierge or the exam doctor, steps back into the adjustatorium and keeps adjusting. Half an hour later, returns to the exam room and picks up the examination where we left off, okay? Fantastic system, and it works beautifully, and it really increases your capacity, all right? All right, so now let's remember that the importance of the empathetic connection cannot be overstated. If a CA or a new patient concierge or an exam doc is delivering this part of the new patient experience, it's going to be critical when the doctor returns that they receive a recap from the new patient concierge in front of the patient before they move on to the next step of the process. In other words, make sure that the DC is brought up to speed in a concise and deliberate manner, okay? Put special emphasis on the following. Make sure you talk about that referring source. Make sure you refer to the chief complaint, describe that chief complaint, the life effect, recap that life effect, the goals that you've discovered or unearthed during your goal-getting conversation. Talk about the significant trauma history and then the examinations that have been completed thus far. So it's going to be critical that depending on where the doctor rejoins the process, whatever happened when the doctor left the room, there needs to be a recap of that information, that recap of that transfer of information to the doctor in front of the patient. It's called a triangular communication. When you recap in front of the doctor or to the doctor in front of the patient, it's like passing a baton in the relay race. And it's not just passing a baton of information, it's passing the baton of empathetic connection so that the patient knows that the doctor knows, and you can pick up on the momentum that the new patient concierge, the tech CA, or the exam DC established during a great consultation process. More on the recap to come in future episodes. Thanks again for joining me for another episode of the Remarkable Practice Academy. I am confident that you found this training highly valuable, but the truth is, it only works if you use it. So train hard, stay focused, and make a difference out there. Remember, you're in the business of saving lives. So when business is good, everybody wins. I'm Dr. Stephen Franson. Go be remarkable.